All right, good morning, Drawing and Painting 1. Today I'm going to give you a real quick run through as to how to start drawing yourself using the facial proportions. Hopefully by now you've gone over the PowerPoint that goes along with this, but I kind of just want to run through and explain this to you as I go. On the board you'll find a diagram of facial proportions it's of a girl with different colored lines and stuff to kind of point out proportions. I'm going to go through and show you how I would start drawing a face. So when you sit down, you want a clean sheet of paper. I would say a couple different colored pencils, definitely a black, and then just a couple different colored pencils. You could even use markers if you wanted to. The first thing I do when I'm drawing a portrait is I do a really light reference circle. So anything that's done in color is going to be my reference lines. Now, your head has a round part, and every time you draw anything, you want to break it down into shapes. So you have a round part. How you get the size of the jaw is usually the jaw is 1/3 of the head. So if you draw a circle, find the middle part, and then from there measure down and put a little line, we know that our jaw should come down to here. Now everybody's jaw shape is a little bit different, so when you go to draw yourself, make sure that you really look at how either round the jaw is or kind of how square the jaw is in terms of shape. So once you get a basic idea, what I also like to do is a really light reference line for the middle of the face so I can kind of keep everything very symmetrical. And then I want to start looking at the shape of the jaw. And the overall shape of the head. So these would just be right now very, very light pencil lines if you were to be doing a real actual drawing. Okay, so I have the head, 1/3 of this is going to be the length of the chin. Once I'm done with that, then what I'm going to do is start placing the actual proportions of the features, such as the eyes. So if you've gone through the PowerPoint, then we know that really everything is kind of broken down into halves. So if we were to take the length of this head and we were to find the halfway point, do you see how I measure? I kind of just figure out, okay, if that's my mark, then that's equal. So this is the halfway point. The halfway point are where the eyes are going to go. So halfway point, I'm going to do in red, and that is going to be the eyes. So the eyes are really halfway between the chin and the very top of the head. Okay. From there we start to look at where the bottom of the nose is. So if I was to again break this down, the bottom of the nose is going to be halfway between the eyes and the chin. So what I want to do is figure out halfway where the halfway mark is. So this is going to be the halfway mark for the nose, the bottom of the nose. And that's going to be between here, which is the eyes, and the bottom of the chin. Okay? So now we want to think about the mouth. Where does the mouth sit? And the mouth sits halfway between the nose and the actual chin itself. So, through and do brown. So we want to think about halfway. What is halfway? So this is about halfway right here. And this is the mouth, and that is halfway between the nose and the bottom of the chin. So now we have these reference points as to where things belong. Now that we know how far down they belong, now we have to figure out where do they fit on the head left to right. So the rule of thumb, let's start with the eyes and work our way down. The rule of thumb says that 5 eyes fit across the face, and 1 eye width fits between the eyes. Now, some people have wide set eyes, some people have narrow set eyes, because it can be slightly different for all. So what you want to do for this purpose is you want to start looking at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, way too big. So I'm going to bring this back to here. Look to see if that's 1, 2, 3. So that looks about right. 1, 2, 3. So 1, 2, 3. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 eyes wide is how many eyes can fit across the page, across the face. So within there, we definitely know that your eyes sit right here on these 2 points, and you have 1 equal eye space between those 2. Okay? Now we start to think about the width of the nose and how far, where does the nose sit in relationship to other features? So if we think about the eyes, and we're going to relate it back to the eyes, the nose should really fall in line with the inside corners of the eyes. So if this is the inside corner of the eye, then the width of the nose should fit and line up with those 2 areas. Now, that again can be slightly different. Some people have maybe a nose that's a little bit more narrow or a nose that's a little bit more wide. You want to judge, but you can always, you want to find a reference point to refer back to. In this case, I always refer back to the corner of my eyes. For the mouth, if we wanted to think about how wide is the mouth usually lines up and ends up going, the corners of the mouth are halfway between the eyes. So if you find the halfway mark, kind of like where it's here but come down, that is going to give you the relative distance, or how wide the mouth should be if that person is not smiling or just kind of just straightforward. All right, so we have, this goes to the mouth, halfway down. These go to the nose, halfway down. Once we have that, then we want to start to think about the ears. The ears line up with the eyes. The top of the ears line up with the eyes, and they line up with the bottom of the nose. So the ears are going to be right here. So we kind of see that it lines up with the eyes and the bottom of the nose. All right, so now that we have that, here's where we can go through and we can start thinking about the neck and the shoulders. Where does the neck line up with everything else? The neck, if you really think about it and you run your hands from your neck, your neck starts at your ears and it goes all the way down into your shoulders. So you don't want to do a neck that's way too wide. Some necks tend to come in a little bit further, so they can seem like they are a little bit more narrow. But in general, your neck really connects at your ears. And then from there we have our shoulders. Now in the PowerPoint, you should have learned that your shoulders are about 3 heads wide. So we have a head that sits right here, and we have another head that sits right over here. Okay, so the heads are 3, your shoulders are 3 heads wide. All right, so here's where we go in and we start to add the detail. So we want to go in, and I'm sorry that I'm drawing this upside down. You guys will learn about how to do the symmetry and how to draw each facial feature when we get into that. The eyebrows tend to start right where the inside corner of the eyes go, and then if you were to draw a line from, let's see, let's go through and do the nose first. The nose is really just 3 little marks, and then you might have just a little tiny line if you're doing a contour line drawing, just one side. You really don't want to have anything more than that, maybe a slight indication of a bulb. The eyebrows should really, if you were to draw an imaginary line from your nose to the outside edge of your eye and come up, your eyebrow should really stop at that point. So ladies, if you are shaping your eyebrows, they should really kind of taper off and stop at that point. Most of the time they're arched. Everybody's eyebrows are a little bit different. All right, once we have that, there's always some kind of little crease in there. We go in and we do the eyebrows. We have the nose. Then we start looking at the mouth. We do have the 2 little points right there. We have the top lip. Comes down. The top lip is almost always thinner than the bottom lip. And the top lip is almost always darker than the bottom lip. Once we do that, we start to think about hair and the overall appearance. So you can give yourself the hair that you actually have. Your hairstyle is totally up to you. Hair usually sits a little bit higher than the actual top of the head, especially if you have like volume. And then for this case, we just kind of want to follow the contour. And I want to go ahead and give final shape with my darker color. Maybe just a few little eyelashes, nothing too crazy. You can give yourself a little shirt. And basically that's what you should have for your diagram. You want to remember all of those little things, and that should be somewhat close to the board. The last thing that I want you to think about is where the highlights would sit. So when you start shading, where are the brightest areas going to sit? Definitely you want to think about what protrudes from the sun and stands out. So definitely the chin would tend to have a highlight. The nose would have a highlight. The T-zone probably has a highlight. Women, girls, if you're trying to look feminine, you definitely want a little bit of highlight on that brow bone. The cheeks would have a little bit of a highlight, and usually the bottom of the lip has a little bit of a highlight. All right, so those things you want to think about in terms of highlights. All right, so your assignment, I want you to get a mirror out, and I want you to try to draw yourself approaching it exactly how I just drew it. So, but looking at yourself and really looking at your features, okay? Start off with that circle 1/3 of the way down to get your chin. Really look at your type of jawline and see how it is, and focus on all contour lines and no shading at this point. I just really want you to try and draw a picture of yourself without any of the reference lines. I would use a really, really light pencil to get all of your reference lines in, and then at the end, go back in darker with maybe your 6B pencil and go in and draw all the details. All right, let's get started.